Hey, what's going on, Summoners? My name is Nathan Ng, and today we'll be looking at the secret to never losing lane. League is full of complex topics, and when it comes to matchups, a lot of people tend to get lost. We'll be breaking out how to navigate some matchups, what you should do to better understand them, and how to expand your knowledge so that you can go ahead and be the best player that you can possibly be. Diving right into the video, we want to cover a few checklist questions that you should be asking yourself. These questions will help you break down the key aspects of certain matchups as well as force you to think about the few other factors. Let's cover a few key questions as well as why they're particularly useful. For our first question, we have who has prio in this lane. This is an extremely important concept that a lot of players overlook. The ability to have priority in lane means that you're able to easily shove the wave and move first to a play. Being able to get prio means that your team can play for objectives near you or force plays in the enemy jungle. Now, this doesn't mean that you'll always want to get prio, since it can put you at risk of getting solo killed in some matchups, which leads us to our next question. At what point do you win or lose? A lot of matchups have a key turning point in which they favor one enemy or the other. For example, a mage like Veigar doesn't have prio early and his damage is fairly low. However, once he reaches Lost Chapter, he's able to contest for wave prio and can easily one-shot the enemy. Knowing these key power points is extremely important for being able to deal with matchups. Another great example is Caitlyn into Vayne. Caitlyn will win the matchup early due to her range and wave prio, so it's important for Caitlyn to push her lead with this in mind. As for Vayne, it's her job to not die and to farm as much as possible, because once she reaches 2 items, she's far stronger than Caitlyn. It'll take a ton of practice and mental effort, but be sure to take notes of these for your future games. Our next great question to ask yourself is, who is the stronger skirmisher and team fighter? If you're playing somebody like Seraphine, then you know that your skirmish power is decent, but definitely not your strong suit. Team fights, on the other hand, is where you truly thrive. This means that as Seraphine, you're going to want to shove in the waves and group up with your team for fights. If you're facing the enemy Seraphine as somebody like Aurelia, then you're going to want to exploit her weaknesses. When she goes to farm for a wave, you can look for a solo kill on her, which will significantly hinder her team fighting power. Then you can look to shove and split push. It's also important to keep in mind who has stronger 2v2 or 3v3 with the jungler. As a jungler, you don't want to counter gank a lane if you lose this fight. This means that you'll want to path away from the enemy jungler so you can go ahead and get isolated ganks. That being said, if your team is stronger, then you'll want to find where the enemy is pathing and play to fight them with your team. This is why you'll often see high-level junglers adjusting their pathing and wanting to get early wards so they can know where the enemy starts. Developing matchup knowledge can be pretty difficult, especially if your fundamentals aren't as solid as they should be. If you need to work on yours, don't forget to check us out at ProGuides.com. You can view our great catalog of challenger coaches that can personally create a walkthrough to your dream rank. You got a busy schedule? Well, we've got you covered. Our trained roster of coaches are here 24/7 to help you guys reach your goal, whatever that may be. So what are you waiting for? Nonetheless, let's get back into our video with our next key concepts for knowing matchups. We lightly covered this in our checklist questions, but let's dive deeper into minimizing losses. Being able to play weak side and navigate losing matchups is incredibly important, especially in solo queue. Once you start dying on repeat to your laner, not only do you fall behind, but your allies tend to lose their minds as well. Instead, there are far better ways to lose and slow down your bleeding rather than making the matchup unplayable. Being able to minimize loss means that you can recognize when you can and can't fight for things like platings, kills, roams, prio, or CS. It's a bit difficult to recognize at first, since you'll have to know your damage and your opponents. However, a good tip is to always give yourself one death for a gank and another for the laner before you completely switch to playing as safe as possible. Ideally, you don't die either time, but sometimes we lose track of the enemy jungler, and it happens. Once you begin falling behind, you need to switch to playing to stall. To start this one out, you'll need to be very careful when managing your minion wave. Versus a good player, one misplay on your wave can end the game because they'll be able to perma-freeze it and then threaten to kill you if you overstep. Be sure to take note of where the enemy jungler is as well as where yours is. If you don't think that you guys can win the 2v1, then let your jungler know. Tell them that you just need them to come to your lane and help you crash the wave so you can safely recall. Depending on the lane, you also have quite a bit of roaming potential when dealing with the freeze if it ends up happening. As a top laner on somebody like Camille, you can look to roam mid or the enemy jungle to help relieve some pressure. As a support, you can move mid or help your jungler so they can go ahead and help bot lane to help you break that freeze. There are a lot of ways to minimize losing, but your biggest advantage is always going to not be dying. Play to be in experienced range so you don't give the enemy kills. If the enemy jungler comes and you're forced to leave because of a dive, that's fine. It uses up the jungler's time and you end up not dying for it. On the flip side of this, we have to know how to maximize your wins. Being on the winning side of the matchup always feels nice, but if you don't know how to push your lead, it can be fairly difficult to carry and win games. First, you'll want to actually gain your lead so you can go ahead and start snowballing. If you took note of our previous points, then you know this is best done by understanding when you're stronger than the enemy. If you win the matchup at level 6, then be sure to wait until then so you can use it to your advantage. If you're stronger at one item while they're stronger at 2, then that's your window to fight for your lead. Recognizing these points is game-changing, and if you can identify them before your opponent can, you'll always have the upper hand. Now, once you actually gain your lead, pushing it depends on how well you play. In a general sense, pushing your lead means that you use your gold and/or experience advantage to impact the map. This is usually done by killing other members, taking objectives, pushing for turrets, or getting vision for your team. As for a few examples, champions that siege well prefer to push their lead by taking multiple turrets. Caitlyn is a perfect fit for this. She plays hard for played spot lane, and once she breaks a turret, she can move mid or top to siege the next one. Afterwards, she breaks the final turret and helps her team play for objectives. These turrets grant her a ton of bonus gold, which now lets her translate her lead into damage so she can fight with her allies. On the other hand, you can have champions like Pyke or Quinn who don't really necessarily play to break turrets. Instead, they can use their lead to get allies ahead with them. This is usually done through powerful roaming tools and high burst damage. However you decide to push your lead, it's important to use it as much as possible. Games are often lost because somebody gets a massive lead versus Kayle, but she just farms up and hits level 16. We can't plan out how to push your lead with every champion, but play to their strengths and when they're stronger than the enemy opponent, and you'll have a pretty good time. Hopefully in doing so, you can find the best tools to identify how you can best win, which leads us to our next point. Which, before we get into, don't think for a second that we have forgotten about everybody's favorite ProGuides tradition. For our question of the day today, we want to ask you all, what is a good matchup tip for your main champion? Regardless of what it may be, let us know your answer in the comment section down below. Anyway, let's get back into the video and check out the power of doing some homework. Okay, this may not be the most exciting topic because, when we hear homework, we kind of die a little bit inside, but as we said before, we can't tell you every single window that your main champion has for winning games. We also aren't able to break down the perfect atomization path for each individual matchup because it's simply not possible. That being said, there's always someone that can help you either directly or with their VODs. Learning how to study others is an incredibly useful skill when it comes to learning matchups. Some champions may be as basic as once you hit level 6, you can just run at them non-stop, while others may require specific details as push for level 2 first, bounce the wave, and then all in with their level 3. I've seen some one tricks have entire Excel spreadsheets dedicated to their champion matchups and how to navigate them. On the other hand, I've seen some that just don't have enough of a player base for that much information. As long as you're able to find other players that main your champion, you can find new strategies. Take a look at their profile and ask questions. Why did they go a certain room page? Why did they switch items this time? Did they max a different ability? How did they end up winning that unwinnable counter matchup? Make yourself think and ask how or why they did these certain things. If you can, go ahead and ask them. If not, research some more for your answer. You can take this a step further with your VODs. Look up their account and download some VODs. See how they play certain matchups. Did they play for a certain power spike, a level advantage? Is there a key cooldown to exploit from the enemy? It's small details like this that can push your gameplay and learning to the next level. Also, you can study your own VODs. I highly recommend that as well. Before we continue on to the end of the video, if you want to join an amazing community of people like you that loves lists, talk pieces, and other things like this, check out our Discord using the link found in the description. What are you waiting for? Join up. Nonetheless, let's get back into the video and take a look at our final key point for navigating matchups. Last but certainly not least, we have the concept of being patient. We say time and time again that you should look to improve and push yourself to be better. You can even argue that sometimes others are growing faster than you, and sometimes other people have success with their champion while you don't. It's important to not get lost in these thoughts while you're on your journey of improvement. We all start somewhere, and needing to take the time to understand where we need to get better at is really hard. This is our reminder that you don't have to rush. You don't have to stress yourself out over misplays and failure. Instead, learn from it and give yourself the time and space to grow. If you truly want to improve at the game, then it's important to continue learning more and more. Gather as much information as you can and apply it one step at a time. Solidify your fundamentals, master your wave management, develop your micro skills, etc. Move one step at a time and don't feel rushed to skip steps. With enough time and dedication, anyone can improve, and while being self-critical can be useful, it's also destructive. Don't tear yourself down for not playing well. Instead, ask yourself how you could have played that better. It's a little rephrasing like this that can save your mental and ease the ache of solo queue. Because at the end of the day, people aren't always the nicest, so be sure that you're at least nice to yourself. We believe in our ProGuides family, and we know that you guys can grow. Keep it up. And that sums up our video for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to join our ProGuides family at ProGuides.com. We offer exclusive giveaways and classes that you won't catch anywhere else, so stay tuned and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.